join me in welcoming our guest to the show today. We have Dr. Charlotte Laws, an animal rights activist, and we have Jody Springborn, a health associate at Funny Love, a nonprofit organization. Today we'll be talking about, as we heard, the bill that's on Governor Brown's desk awaiting to be signed. But I want to get to talking about people and animals and how they'll be affected. Let's start with the animals. How will the bill impact the animals hoping to get adopted?
Well, this bill is extremely important. It will hopefully end the killing in the shelters. Right now, at Los Angeles, I believe we adopt out something like 84% of the animals that come into the shelters. We were hoping to be at 90% by 2017, but we really want to be no-kill. And no-kill means really that only those who are suffering, like 1% of the animals who are in such bad condition that they can't be treated, those are the only animals that you would kill if you had an ideal situation. So this bill is really, really important, and I'm very optimistic that Governor Brown will sign it. I do have some experiences with him that make me think he will sign it. Several years ago, I guess about 10 years ago, when he was the Attorney General for Oakland, I had a conversation with someone who was his assistant, and he told me an interesting story about the governor. He was trying to get a hotel in Rome, and the assistant said, he was going to find him a hotel, and Jerry wanted the cheapest hotel because he's a very kind of known as being a cheap person, right? And the assistant said, well, what are you going to do with all your money? You're going to die one of these days. What are you going to do with all that money you have? You're a rich guy. And he said, I'm leaving it all to the animal shelter. And his dog was from a shelter, so I have reason to believe that he would probably be willing to sign this bill.
Thank you. Jody, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think what the having shelter animals in pet stores instead of puppy mills or anything like that, I think what it will do is promote more responsible pet ownership. So hopefully what it will do is kind of stop the impulse buys and help people to learn more about the type of pet that they want before they actually go ahead and welcome them into their home.
Awesome. Do you know actually what is the impact that this will have on the people who actually is looking to have a new pet in their family? Can we start with you on this one, Jody?
Well, I think because a lot of the pet stores now, when they work with a rescue, the adoption actually goes through the rescue. So they're the ones that will do the education, that do the home checks, do the applications and things like that, and that is how people will get to know what they need to do, how to take care of their pet. In my experience, that people who've bought pets, like, from their neighbor or something like that, they'll come in and they're like, I don't know how to take care of this animal. And so they already have the animal, and then they're learning all the ins and outs, which isn't really the time to learn how to take care. I mean, it's better than never, but it's you need to do your research first.
Yeah, there will be good education when you have the rescues involved. And there's certainly plenty of animals that can go into the pet shops and be, available for the public. But even if we were in a situation where the shelters were empty, which would be amazing, there's absolutely no reason why those rescue groups couldn't get animals from other states that are still being killed at very high rates and bring them into Los Angeles and be able to have them adopted out of those pet shops.
Thank you, Charlotte. Well, as the bill is basically focused on breeders mostly, let's talk more about what actually the problem that breeders bring and how this bill is going to affect them. Can we start with you, Charlotte?
Well, I believe that there are like 10,000 puppy mills in the country, and 2 million animals are created out of those puppy mills each year. So, and the conditions are supposed to be very bad. I know they did a study years ago and said 50% of the animals are not cared for, neglected, or under very bad conditions. And a lot of those animals do end up in the shelters, and a lot of them end up killed. So maybe it's going to affect them to some degree, but of course people will still be able to go and get an animal outside of a puppy shop if they want to. They can go to a breeder if they want to. This law does not prohibit that.
And Jody, do you have anything to...
Well, I think a lot of people don't understand that there's also rabbit mills. I mean, that rabbits can have lots of babies, that's what they're known for, but they can also be bred for that. And especially when it comes to Easter, that is there's a big push for that. And a lot of the babies are taken too early from their mom. And they're in pet stores where a lot of the people who work there don't know how to take care of them. And two, a lot of times they're sick, so a lot of them don't even make it to the pet store. They die in transport. So hopefully it will really put an end to that, or at least less.
Aren't rabbits the highest killed animal in the shelters in Los Angeles?
Yes, that's what I've heard. And it's true, there's a lot, like in our shelter, we get a lot of emails and calls. People either find a rabbit or they can't take care of their rabbit, right, or their rabbit had babies. Now I need to get rid of the little babies. So, it's constant. And it is really overwhelming for just maybe a city or county shelter to deal with. Certainly, like with those rescues as well. So this, we just don't need pet stores to add to that problem.
Absolutely.
Also, when some of the animals actually from breeders actually make it into an animal shelter, because due to some of those breeders conditions that the breeders keep them in, they are like something's tight, they're cramped, and they then move into the shelter, and then they got certain spaces. How do you think they would animals actually to adapt to that new area since they're used to being
Well, I know bunnies are very fragile. So they're very fragile creatures, and certain animals are fragile. So it's probably much harder for them to adapt, I would assume.
Well, a lot of times, people keep the bunnies in a cramped space, and this is also in the city and county shelters. They only have this little cage where they can hold the bunny, and after some time, some maybe rabbits that are quite docile, they can get really frustrated and aggressive. And in our shelter, a lot of times we will pull red listed, which means the rabbits that are on their euthanized list, we will take those rabbits, and we have big huge areas, so we'll put them in there. And there's a dramatic change. They get happier, they can become more social, they're just really end up being wonderful animals. So, changing that environment from being a small, cramped place to a bigger place with buddies and a better diet is usually good.
Yes.
To help with our audience, can we help differentiate what's the difference between a rescue organization and a shelter?
Well, a rescue organization doesn't kill the animals, so they're taking animals in. They're actually doing a very thorough screening process for who's going to adopt the animal. So you have to fill out a questionnaire, and sometimes they go to your house and they want to look at the surroundings and make sure that the animal is going to be happy there, that it's a suitable environment. Whereas a shelter, if you pay the fee, pretty much that's it, you get the animal. So there's not as much scrutinizing. Some shelters are no kill, but most do kill. And people don't really like to go to kill shelters to adopt. I mean, a lot of people have a back off from even walking in there. They'd rather go to a rescue organization where they know all those animals will get home.
And you think more people would actually go to a kill shelter, because when you go to a kill shelter and you adopt a pet from there, you actually will be saving a pet.
You're saving a life, but statistically they say people have back off because they're just freaked out about seeing the faces of these poor animals who are going to die. And so actually, if you have a situation, if you didn't have kill shelters, you'd probably even have more adoption. People would be, more apt to go into those shelters.
That is true. Jody, do you have anything to add to that? To help out?
Well, we do have, in our rescue, we do have a very thorough adoption process. It's an application form, it's a home check. Sometimes we do 2 home checks. And normally what we do as well, we bond if a person has a rabbit, we take their rabbit and match them with one of ours, and we do that matching process because rabbits can be quite territorial, even though they love a buddy. They can be really territorial, and it can be really tricky to match them up. So what we are focused on is that our rabbit has the greatest chance of success in the new home. So we educate the owner, potential owner, as much as we can. We find a good match for the bunny, and hopefully everything works up magical.
When you're talking about dogs, for example, Chihuahuas are the second most killed dog in the shelters, and yet you go to pet stores and sometimes they sell for $800 or $1,000 to get a dog that you could go to the shelter for and you could save a life. So, we're going to hopefully eliminate that problem when this bill comes into being.
Also, when like certain animals from breeding mills get to like a rescue organization or shelter, does it matter how differently that they're handled because they are coming from different conditions?
You might have to be more careful with them because they've been neglected potentially. They may have had a very bad start in life, and so you may have to worry about that as someone who's going to be taking care of them and trying to get a home for them.
I think it also depends on the health situation, what they have. Sometimes they're in bad shape, and so you have to treat accordingly. Sometimes they're great, so you don't have to do much.
Since we started talking about what some families can expect when they adopt a new animal, was there anything like more that families can actually truly look into before they decide to get a new pet? Like before when you talked about Jody, what they want to make sure what they want to what they want to have, like a dog, cat, bunny. Also, is there what should they expect? How long is that process to get a new pet?
Well, you can do research on the internet if you're looking for a certain type of dog. We have purebred animals that come into the shelters, and a lot of times they go out to rescue groups, but those are still kind of shelter animals even when they end up going to a rescue group. So you can kind of investigate what type of an animal you want, the size you want. Maybe you already have another dog and you want to kind of see how it's going to go with the two animals, the new one and the other one, and you can have them meet in advance. And so the process can vary as far as how long it takes to determine what animal would be best for your household. Like
how you mentioned, Charlotte, people have other pets, like another dog. How long does it take? Does it take other more home visits or in shelter, in location visits for the family, bring their other pet with them so they can meet the new animal, so make sure they can get along? And how long should they expect to do that? Because I know some animals don't always just meet and are like friends.
Yeah, it's you certainly want to at least do that once and have a nice playtime between, if it's a dog, for example, you want to have a playtime between the two animals and see how they get along. If it's a rescue group, I do think a lot of times they do allow, if there's a problem, you can take the animal back and get a different animal if necessary.
We always take our adopted animals back. Just this August, we took back a rabbit that was adopted out in 2010. So that was 7 years. Not very many people at the rescue remembered him. But we do. We always take our rabbits back.
Well, we talked to pet owners about what it's like having an animal and what it has brought to their home. Let's take a look on what they said.
Well, there are so many homeless animals that need people's support. But more importantly, you're going to get yourself a really amazing pet. Sometimes people think that animals in animal shelters are there because there's a problem with the animal. But the reality of it is about a breakdown in the family unit. So now we have all these amazing animals that have training and have lots of love to give.
Okay, and this is Rena. Rena is up for adoption. I found her lying on the street in the city of Pomona in the terrible heat. You can see that she just had puppies. I'm assuming people were using her for breeding and for selling the babies to people that are not screened, or we don't know what happens to the babies. So that just shows you the importance of spaying and neutering your animals and of adopting from local shelters.
This is Daisy. Daisy is 7 months old.
And I got her actually at the Downey shelter. So big shelter fan. All three of our dogs are shelter dogs, and so I do a Facebook Live hit at the Pasadena Humane Society. Fell in love with the place a few months ago. So when I found out they were doing this, it was like, okay, we got to get behind this cause. So here we are.
So, Jody, is there any way, like, specific way to take care of, like, the rabbits from Bunny Love that you guys take care of, like, from, like, you rescue them and you bring them in, like, so they can be adopted?
Well, most of the rabbits that we take in at Bunny Love, they are red listed from either the city or county shelters, and some of them are, it's just due to overcrowding. Some of them may have health issues, and we know that the vet services in most county and city shelters, they're not really extensive, and definitely not with rabbits. So if it's beyond a spay and neuter, it's beyond them. And some of the issues that rabbits may encounter, such as teeth issues or eye issues or infections or whatever, that can be very easily treated. It's expensive, but it can be treated, and the rabbit would be just fine. So we try to do our best with taking in rabbits with health issues or special needs as well.
I also want to mention that there are chickens in the shelter, so if anybody's looking for a hen, for example, they are there. So don't go to your feed store and try to, buy these hens. Go to the shelters first.
And also small animals like guinea pigs and
I have chickens actually, and they are sweet, adorable, different personalities. Each of them have, and so I highly advocate them as pets.
I see both you, Sean, and Jolie have a point there. These shelters do include, like, more than just dogs, cats, and pets.
Absolutely.
Well, I think people don't realize that, for one thing, there's a rescue for pretty much anything. Name a pet, there's a rescue for it. And also that, the city shelters and the county ones too, I believe, they're required. They're open admission shelters. So you can bring in your potbelly pig and say, I can't have them anymore, and they have to take them. They might.
But hopefully people won't do that. But if you are looking to adopt also, you can go online and you can see all the pictures of all the different animals in the shelter, so you don't actually have to drive there initially. You can totally go through picture after picture of whatever you're looking for, and not just in the LA city shelters, but lots of other surrounding shelters. So there's just a wealth of information on the internet.
Well, since we brought up no kill earlier in the show today, let's get to talk about more about how Los Angeles is becoming more no kill, and what does that actually really mean to the city?
Well, there are different definitions as far as what no-kill means. Nathan Winograd, who has no-kill advocacy, he's one of the experts on no-kill in the country. He says that about 1%, if you're killing 1% because of suffering in a situation where they can't be, fixed medically, that would be acceptable, but nothing else would be acceptable. Some people will say you have to, if you're killing 2 or 3%, that would be acceptable. So it kind of depends on the definition. I know LA was hoping to be at 90% save rate by this year, and we're not quite there yet. But in general, LA is better than a lot of cities. I mean, we really do a lot of, work with volunteers and with rescue groups, and we have a lot of events where we, reach out to the public and get them to come in and adopt. And so in general, we've been very good. And our city council has always been pretty animal friendly, and our mayors over the years as well.
Yeah, and just to know, no-kill actually, those statistics really just refer to dogs and cats, not rabbits. So if you'd include rabbits, that the current rate is much lower than what it currently says, unfortunately.
I mean, I know in the state of California there are 500,000, I believe, killed every year in the shelters, and it costs the taxpayers $250 million, and it can be $100 to $250 per animal just to house, feed, and kill the animals. So it's also going to save money to make the city no-kill, to make the state no-kill. So it's really important for a lot of reasons, not only to save lives, but to save taxpayer dollars.
If we actually decided not to kill, no animal, try to save like all the animals, would that also kind of increase the hospital bills for those who are like in like very let's say the animal can't really move or like do anything?
Well, obviously, if they're in a situation where euthanasia is better because there's really no way to resolve their pain and suffering, then that's one thing. But there are a lot of vets who volunteer free time. There are a lot of individuals who know about medical care who donate their time to the city, to whoever the shelter may be. So it's not necessarily going to increase the cost. I think it's going to decrease the cost for the taxpayer if we become no-kill.
There are lots of great volunteers in the city and county shelters, and they spend a lot of time walking dogs and playing with kittens, and sometimes they hang out with the bunnies as well. But they do try, because it's too much for the staff to do. Of course, they don't have the time, but that's why they have usually a very robust volunteer.
And we have foster families, and a lot of times the foster families will bear the cost of those medical bills.
Thanks for joining me today. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.